Hello, friends and family. You are watching the Elsa Kurt Show, which I'm pretty sure that makes me Elsa Kurt, unless I've got amnesia or something, but I'm Elsa Kurt. How are you guys? I am doing great, and I have a great guest today. I'm so excited for you to meet her and listen to her. Her name is Courtney Geels, so we're going to get right to that. All right. We don't play around here. We get right to it. We have Courtney Geels here. She is running for Congress in North Carolina's 6th district. And you're going to correct me if I got any of that wrong, right?
Yes, that was all perfect. Thanks for having me on, Elsa.
Thank you so much for coming on. So so a quick check-in on this. If I read right, this is a new district because of redistricting, yes?
Yeah, North Carolina's a whole cluster right now. It is technically a new district. It was District 4, which was the incumbent is David Price, who is retiring, thankfully. A lot of people want him out. So he's retiring, and it's now District 6, which is most of the same counties. It's Orange County, Durham County, and then a piece of Wake County in North Carolina. Generally a pretty blue district, but I think there's definitely room for movement there. But North Carolina, unfortunately, has a lot of lawsuits going on, and they have pushed our primary out from March to May, and now, as of a couple days ago, to June, because the Democrats say there's gerrymandering. But as you well know, if you look at something like Illinois, that's true gerrymandering. If you look at our maps, I think that they look relatively fair, but the Democrats don't like it, and our Supreme Court is run by Democrats, so it should be an interesting turnout to what happens with that.
Absolutely. And this is so indicative of what's going on across the country with I've just lost some lighting here, but that's okay. Indicative of what's going on across the country with, every time the Democrats don't like something, they want to change all of the rules and rewrite all of the rules. So no surprise there. So I love hearing the backstories of how people got to where they are. Now, your background is in nursing. Are you currently a nurse?
I'm not working right now. I was a travel nurse for probably 5 years, but the last contract I was working was this past summer. So.
Okay. And so nursing, politics, not quite the same lane, right? So what was the trigger? What sparked that this is the moment, that right now is the time that I need to do this? What was it for you?
Yeah, well, I think there's a buildup there related to nursing that you see in the hospitals where administrations for the past few years have really prioritized profits over quality patient care. And I've seen that in a multitude of examples at my job where something that administration, a decision that they make is directly affecting how I'm able to give quality care at the bedside, whether that's staffing, whether that's materials, whether that's hours. It's just really, or even teams that they've cut out that were really helpful to quality. That was kind of something that was really starting to get at me as really a patient advocate, which is what all nurses should be. I really can't stand bad patient care. And so I've seen this trend in the hospital that way. And now I would say in the past year, maybe even 2 years, there's this trend where the federal government is making similar decisions from a high level and making executive orders and laws that directly affect our quality of life on the ground. And they're made from so high up that these people are so disconnected with real life that they don't even know how to make decisions for real people. And we need to bring down that power of the federal government. And I would say that's like the overarching theme of the buildup. But backstory that I'm guessing you don't know is my husband, kind of a long story, but he ended up being the lead data expert on the Trump versus Raffensperger case in Georgia with election integrity. So we were seeing real data. He was running the data, he was producing the data, and that was not what was being given to the public. So I think just the idea of censorship and the things that we're seeing, how Google is just taking things down where you can't even find it. was incredibly irritating around that time. And me being in the hospital with COVID and seeing how that was really just being politicized so badly, and the CDC was changing their mind on recommendations and giving bad recommendations half the time, or telling something that was going on in the hospital that wasn't actually going on in the hospital, was infuriating to me. And I would say the straw that broke the camel's back was both my parents are respiratory therapists. So if you don't really know what that job is, it's pretty much a nurse that just deals with breathing. They're not a nurse, but they kind of function similarly, but only deal with the respiratory system. So they are on the front lines of COVID. Every single dying COVID patient, my parents are taking care of them. And they were both told on the same day with different hospital systems in North Carolina, Duke and UNC, for those of you who are local, that they were going to lose their jobs if they didn't take the vaccine. And I would say that was the point at which Courtney got very mad and realized, you know what, we cannot keep taking this from the federal government. They cannot keep mandating things and telling us what we're going to do with our medical care. At a certain point, it's your health over, that's really the only thing. It's funny working in the hospital. People can talk the talk all day and be confident as all get out, make tons of money. But the second they get a cancer diagnosis or they get a lupus diagnosis, their whole world is changed. And we cannot continue to allow the federal government to affect our healthcare this way.
That's so true. And you see these and hear these awful stories of people with not non-COVID issues, like things like cancer and other serious conditions and ailments, and they're not getting the treatment. They're either not seeking the treatment. If they're unvaccinated, they're afraid to go to these hospitals because of the responses from the staffing, or from really administration, and not allowing them care, or denying them care, I should say. You just hear these insane stories. Now, in your experience with the nurses that you've been involved with and doctors and general staff, is it split down the middle? Is there more people that are against the vaccines? Like what has the climate been like?
Yeah, I was actually really surprised when the vaccine rolled out how quickly the healthcare community just jumped on that. And to be honest, from my perspective, I think there's a high burnout rate with COVID. There was already a high burnout rate in the healthcare field, but they had been working their tails off trying to take care of these people. And this was kind of a beacon of hope, a beacon of light, especially for people who are not Christians. I think that if you're not a Christian, and I am, there's this fear of dying that's just deep within someone, that if there's some ticket out of death, they're going to take it. And unfortunately, our world is trending that way. That's very not God honoring and not Christian. And so a lot of people are terrified of death and think anyone who doesn't care about other people dying acutely, they just don't care about other people. And so I think that the initial response was gravitating significantly toward the vaccine. And I even had a coworker the first week was like, well, Courtney, don't you believe the science? And I was like, you just made that political. Thank you. Of course, I believe the
Right.
science. I don't believe in political science necessarily, but I believe in biology and chemistry, and I'm using my own
Yes.
scientific brain to make my decisions. So
Hmm.
I think that unfortunately the medical, especially people who've been to the ER, and I'm an emergency room nurse generally. I've worked a couple other kind of jobs, but that's usually where I land. And there definitely have been a lot of stories that I've heard from people that have come in as a patient and been yelled at by the healthcare workers in the emergency room for not getting the vaccine. And I think that is disgusting. And I think that people will say, maybe that's a form of non-compliance. But we deal with non-compliant patients all the time. That's literally what our bread and butter of the hospital is, people who are non-compliant with their healthcare routine. They're not taking their hypertension medicines. They're not taking their diabetic medications. Both of those reasons can put them on dialysis. Then they don't go to their dialysis, and then they're admitted to the hospital because they need that help. So the idea that healthcare workers don't want to take care of people because they could have prevented being sick is absurd. And so I think, unfortunately, our healthcare workers are going towards the vaccine. But I also know, and I'm sure you understand this, as a conservative, you're just not allowed to talk anymore. So I think
Right.
there's a lot of people who are not in agreement with the way things are going that are in the hospital, but they need to keep their jobs and they have to keep their mouth shut.
Yeah, that's exact. I tell you, boy, you made so many phenomenal points, so accurate on all of them too. And that is such a huge factor in this, that people who at their core, their belief system tells them, and their common sense tells them that this is wrong, yet they are, understandably, they're like, this is my livelihood. They don't see themselves as having a choice, because they see themselves as just one person. And of course, a person with bills to pay and family to take care of, and mortgages to pay and all those things, so they can't afford to lose their job. They feel like they can't afford to take that stand. And it truly is appalling that people are sacrificing their values and their health, really, um, for the sake of going along, because they feel like they have no choice. It's, I tell you, and the hypocrisy of everything, of course, all of these things are so. I think I can speak for so many conservatives when I say I am just awestruck in a terrible way at how quickly this has happened. And you made a really great point too about the fear of death has overruled our core need for freedom, freedom of choice. And
Absolutely.
you're right. You're absolutely right. Fear of death has dominated the conversation. And the people who masterminded this, they are brilliant in the most evil way.
Yes.
And it's terrifying. And I have to thank you and people like you who have decided to really truly step up and say, not on my watch. I'm not going to allow it. It's incredibly brave, because your opposition is huge.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I
so,
really appreciate that. I think that there's some interesting, dynamic there that I think that idea of just not being able to talk and not feeling like you can talk, we're really trending toward a path that people are just not standing up, like you said, for freedom. But I also think that that lingo and those words that, just like you kind of touched on, that just idea of people, keeping people safe. Well, that's a great
mhm,
slogan. And you
sure.
know what? There's also this idea of, you don't want to die. Okay, well, let's play off of that for a second.
Mhm,
Do you also want to, when you actually do have a heart attack, like you said, or you do have colon cancer, or you actually have something? I had a job before COVID. I joke, my husband's an accountant and I'm a nurse. He doesn't actually work in taxes, but he could work in
mhm.
taxes, and I technically work in death, and that's the only ultimate thing that never stops is death and taxes. And so, when
You're
it
right.
comes to hospitals, it's like they are just going down, down, down when it comes to quality and when it comes to staffing. And what people don't
Mhm,
realize is they think this COVID vaccine is the end all be all. Well, guess what? You're going to lose so many healthcare workers. You've already lost so many healthcare workers. They're starting to put people in roles that are not qualified. They're putting brand new nursing grads. This is a
mhm.
true story. I'm not going to tell you who told me this because I don't want to get that person in trouble, but they have brand new nursing grads who have been trained
Mhm.
very quickly in the ICU, and these are in top level hospitals, who are now training new grads in not in the emergency room. I'm sure that's happening too, but in the ICU. And this is
Wow.
like high level stuff. So you think you're getting this quality patient care because you're in the ICU and you have a one on one nurse. Well, when that one on one nurse just got out of nursing school, I'm sorry,
Mm,
but you're not getting quality care. And your grandma or your mom or your daughter is going to die because
right.
you pushed people out of their jobs that could give you that quality care. And so maybe we need to turn the script around and say, death is a big deal, but we need to pay
Mhm.
attention to what we're doing to the hospital system right now with the decisions that our government is making that is going to hurt people in the future when it comes to them being hospitalized.
Mhm. Absolutely. It's just incredible, and it's so mind-blowing. And of course, you just touched on it, that, the irony of ironies here is that they fired healthy, good nurses and staff, hospital staff, because they were unvaccinated. And now we have, a shortage of nurses. And now, as you're saying, we basically have less than fully qualified nurses doing jobs that they should not be doing. And, it's obviously a recipe for disaster. And, the
Absolutely.
people who pay for that are the patients. and they're unwitting. They have no idea. They just, like you said, they just assume, well, this person has done all of the things that they need to do to be the person taking care of me. And, they could potentially be very, very wrong. Um, Now, so tell me what exactly, how do I want to phrase this? So tell me more about your platform, what you're running on. I love that it's grassroots, that these are my favorite platforms, because it's so real and it's so connected to who we really are as communities and as people. So tell me a little bit more about your platform, some of the things that you want to see happen, as a congresswoman.
Yeah, well, I've built it from a high level on the values of truth, justice, and unity in America. And those have been, again, overused terms. And a good theme to my campaign is going to be using those terms and turning them back on exactly what the left is trying to say, but they're not fulfilling those things. So I think when it comes, I've gotten some pushback on the justice and unity. Everybody loves truth. But with unity, you hear Biden say, when he takes office, I seek not to divide, but to unite. And I would say our country is the most disunited country I've ever experienced. And
Yep.
so, but I don't think you can just push unity on people. You have to have truth and justice, true truth and justice, to be able to
Hmm.
have unity in our country. And you can't just push justice and get rid of and censor certain aspects of truth. So, related to those things, I'm going to be talking about COVID. I'm going to talk about election integrity. I'm going to talk about these things that I think we are being censored on related to truth, but also
Hmm.
related to justice. I am a Republican. I'm very anti-abortion. I think that's an injustice that we are
Hmm.
seeing in our community that's not talked about as an injustice necessarily. And
Hmm.
related to that, I think that Republicans get a lot of, pushback from the left related to, well, you don't care about the baby once they're born, or you don't care about the mother. But I think that that is just not true. One, there's
Right.
so many pregnancy resource centers that I think we could definitely designate money to rather than Planned Parenthood, that does help the mom and does help the baby. And I believe in helping the adoption process not be so expensive and not be so, challenging to do. But
Hmm.
specifically, something that I think might resonate with you, and I'm curious to know your feedback on this, is there was a Democrat bill in 1994 called the Crime Bill. And it
Hmm.
sounds really good if you just kind of like read through it real quick, even as a Republican, because they're
Hmm.
really, labeling it as like, we want to stop violent crime. But there's these
Hmm.
little, nuances within the bill that you really have to dig for, that go
Hmm.
down into stuff like the weight of cocaine that someone possesses is directly affecting what the consequences of the action is. So if you have a
Hmm.
certain amount of weight, then you could potentially have life in prison, or even there's a certain number of times that this can happen that you could even get the death penalty. I'm not sure if that's actually getting
Wow.
pushed, but
Hmm.
there's a certain level of just having a certain amount of cocaine on you. And unfortunately, I've heard this from multiple Black people that, if in the lower income neighborhoods, they smoke
Hmm.
crack cocaine, which none of this is
Hmm.
good, but it's
Hmm.
all bad, I would say. And so
Right.
crack cocaine is a mixture, so it has a heavier weight. Whereas, the pure form of cocaine is going to be a lot lighter, but I would argue as a nurse, it's a lot more
Hmm.
pungent to the system. It could kill you
Sure.
immediately by taking it. So I
Right.
think we need to dig into these things that the Democrats have done kind of under wraps. And David
Hmm.
Price, the incumbent, and Biden voted and pushed this bill forward. It was a Democrat bill. And I think we need to bring light to the fact that the Democrats are not trying to help the minorities. They are not trying to help the lower income people. They're trying to help the elite and the tech geniuses of today. I just saw a
Hmm.
meme where it talked about like the 10 people that were, say, billionaires now are trillionaires, and they're all
Hmm.
white men. Like,
Hmm.
they're preaching this, we're helping the minorities, we're helping the women,
Right.
but they're not. It's
No.
disgusting and it's full of lies. And we need to again flip the script and show that Republicans are the party for minorities. If you have a
Hmm.
pure democracy, well, they're the minority. So if we start voting on just numbers, the white men are going to win.
Right.
And so I'm
Right.
not against white men. I'm just for Republic and I'm for the people. And I think
Sure.
every person should have a voice. And so when it comes to injustices, I really want to dig into those truths and talk about how we can really bring justice in America.
Oh, that is so appreciated and so needed. And, once again, I find myself like nodding so hard, my neck is going to break because I agree. I agree with you so much on what you're saying. And, what people keep failing to realize is what we've been saying for quite some time here. If you look at all of these cities that are in absolute peril, ridden with crime, these are Democrat run cities. And the hard truth of the matter is that the Democrats do not want people to come out from underneath their thumbs. They don't
Yep.
want them out of poverty. They don't want them to succeed. They don't want that, because if they do, they won't need them anymore. And the
Mm-hmm.
sooner that the people in these communities would understand this and realize that Republicans are not the enemy. I think everybody has this outdated view of Republicans as, stodgy, ancient, old white men running the world. And yes, that was pretty much true for a long period of time. But now we have the Courtney Geels of the world coming in and saying, no, 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 this is not how it's going to be. And
Yeah.
there's so many young, if you don't mind me calling you young, nobody should be insulted by
I
being
am.
called
It's
young,
okay.
right? Young is good. Young is good.
I'm 31 for
uh,
anybody who wants to know.
okay, yeah, so you're still a baby to me. But a very accomplished baby, more accomplished than I
Thank you.
am. So no
No.
disrespect intended there at all. Um, but you have this, and this is what's so exciting to me to watch, to see these new, young, authentic and real people, everyday people coming and saying, no, 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 this is not how it's going to be run anymore. We're coming in and we're going to do this right. We're going to fix all of the things. It's going to take time and it's going to be really, really hard. But I see y'all rolling up your sleeves and ready to attack it. And I think that is exactly what we need. Here's probably an almost unanswerable question, and no pressure or anything, but um, do
I
you
like these things.
ever good? Yeah. Okay. Do you ever see, because I don't, I'm going to preface and say, I don't see it right now. Do you think
Mhm.
there's ever going to be a time where Democrats, the Democrats of today, um, is there ever going to be unity? Are we ever going to meet in the middle and actually work together? I mean, because we have such, I think conservatives and Republicans are actually, as a whole, the modern conservative Republican is somewhat of a moderate. We're
Mhm.
not going to touch certain things, but we're going hard for the core values that are really important and matter. Um, but boy, oh boy, the left has leaned so far that they're not even standing. You know what I mean? It's so
Right.
insane. How do we meet in the middle with people like this? I don't understand it. I don't know how. Any
Yeah.
ideas?
I think that there are genuine Democrats that really want to say help immigrants. I mean, I've gone to church with people who will adamantly argue that the Democrat Party is better than the Republican Party, and I don't see that. But I do think there are genuine Democrats who love the Lord and they love people, and they see where the Democrat Party likes to say give money or give help to people who are hurting, and that's a biblical value. Personally,
Hmm.
I feel like the church needs to step. Money is going to go towards that. It's going to go, if a Democrat is in power, it's going to go to Planned Parenthood, and that's disgusting to me. If a
Yes.
Republican is in role, it's probably going to go to something that a Democrat doesn't want their taxes going towards. So why can't
Hmm.
we decrease taxes, decrease the power of the federal government, and give the power to the people where they can give their money where they choose? But as far as your answer to can we have unity, I do think there are probably, I mean, we see this with Manchin. We see this with, other Democrats that really are
Hmm.
seeing, they're seeing probably the points that I'm making right now. Like, we do want to help these immigrants, but we want to prevent the spread of COVID. Let's be
Hmm.
logical about this. Let's not
Right.
spend, $3 to $5 trillion when we're already in debt. There's some logic in some Democrats, and I'm fine with that. Like, I'm fine with us
Mhm.
having a little difference of opinion, because that's
Sure.
just, I believe, to the answer of your question, it boils down to, my personal worldview is that we're all sinners, and we're
Mhm.
all going to have flaws, and we're all going to have different opinions, and we're all reflecting God differently. So there's
Mhm.
good and bad in that. And so I do think there's some Democrats that you can work with that
Mhm.
do create some kind of unity, because it's almost like iron sharpening iron, where we can give each other different perspectives. And I do
Mhm.
believe if we can actually push the truth out and actually make it known, you're going to see some unity in different parties. Where I don't
Mhm.
think that we're going to see unity is just that ultimate worldview of, we have a lot of sinners who want power, want money, and could care
Mhm.
less about the people, but they dress it up like they care about people to get that power. So the only
Mhm.
way we really fight that is by exposing those people. And so I don't think we're going to ultimately have perfect unity, but I do think we need to strive for unity, because we're the United States of America, and that's why we've had
Mhm.
strength for so long.
I like that. That gives me hope. That gives me a promise of a better future, knowing that people like you, and even people like you on the opposite side of the fence, on the Democrat side, that are want the same things, even if they're slightly different,
Mhm.
views or ways to get there. So that's a good feeling. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me, or actually tell everybody, how can we find you? Where can we see you next? How can we support you?
Yeah, well, my website is CourtneyGeelsForCongress.com. So if you're local, I would say even with an hour's driving distance, and you want to help flip a blue seat, go to my website and sign up to volunteer. We are going to need lots of volunteers. I have so many ideas on how to really outreach to the community, because this is going to have to be a very manual effort, because the news is not helping us. So as far as
Mhm.
locations, also if you're local, they're going to have it's still considered District 4, because that's what it previously was, but they're going to have a district meeting on January 27th at the Durham GOP headquarters, where we're going to have a little bit of a town hall debate with the primary candidates. So if you're local and want to come to that, I would surely appreciate it. But also, if everyone that's listening can follow me on social media, on everything, Twitter, Instagram, Getter, I am at Courtney Geels, and then Facebook, it's Courtney Geels for Congress. So I really appreciate the time, and I hope we can work together to flip this seat and, bring unity back to our country.
Outstanding. Courtney, thank you so, so much for coming on, taking time out of your day to chat with me. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to see everything that you're going to do. I have lots of faith in you and high hopes. So best of luck to you. And we're going to keep watching you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me on. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Talk soon. Take care. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Isn't she amazing? Absolutely love her. Get over on social media, all of your social media platforms. Go follow her, show her some support, and share. Do all of the things, like, follow, share, all of the good things. And let's get this country back on track together, huh? Thanks for watching today. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.